Okay, come over here. That's you.
Okay, it's going live now.
Mhm.
Let me refresh. As soon as it kicks, just let me know. Then you get it.
Now I can X off of this, right?
Mhm.
Record on this computer.
Oh, I think it's disabled.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Galuzzo, Superintendent of Schools at Lakeshore. I want to thank all the parents and community members who have sent in questions for today's meeting on Lakeshore's reopening plan. There'll be one more such meeting at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, August 19th. Additional questions can be sent to parentmeeting@lscsd.org. When you click on that link on the website, it should default to your regular email program. If you're having difficulty, you can cut and paste that link into your email program that you use at home. Also on the line here, I want to introduce some of our administrative staff that are joining us. We have Mrs. Bernard Wallen, Assistant Principal at the middle school. Mrs. Starks, Principal at Hoyt, UPK, and a lot of other great things that she takes care of for us. Mrs. Clark, Principal at AJ Schmidt. Mr. Wilson, our Director of Facilities. Mrs. Bergler, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Mr. Rydell, our middle school principal. Mrs. Eastman, Principal at JTWA. Mr. Deanna, one of our assistant principals at the high school. Mr. Pecos, our Assistant Superintendent for Administration and Finance. Mrs. Benedict, our Director of Special Education and Support Services. Mrs. Palatowski, our principal at Highland. And Mrs. Cook, our principal at the high school. Welcome, everyone. It says live on YouTube. It seems that we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty again with it going live. We have one of our technicians here standing by to make sure that it's up and running.
It's on there now. It was a delay.
Okay, there you go. There was a little bit of a delay. Just wanted to make sure that it was up and running. Thank you. Mr. Barnes, he's our technology guru. He's sitting by me to make sure that everything goes well. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Our reopening plan was submitted to SED and the Department of Health and posted on our website on July 31st. The plan includes the topics of health and safety, facilities, child nutrition, transportation, social and emotional well-being, budget, school schedules, attendance, technology and connectivity, teaching and learning, and special education. Please take a few minutes to look over the plan, and please note that this is our initial effort at reopening. Our plan is that COVID rates remain low in our region, and that with our precautionary steps and everyone's cooperation, that full reopening eventually will be possible. Meanwhile, Lakeshore will implement a hybrid plan that will have all students engaged in remote learning on Mondays. To meet New York State standards requirements for social distancing, students will be placed in two groups, green and white, based on their first initial of their last names and by families of the same household. That way, we have only half of our students in the building for in-person instruction. Students with last names starting A through J are in the green group. Students whose last name starts with K through Z are in the white group. The green group will be in person on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with remote learning activities provided for Thursday and Friday. The white group will be in person on Thursdays and Fridays with remote learning activities prepared for Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Students who are enrolled in certain special education programs will be in person Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Notification of assigned groups will be mailed out to families this week. If your family circumstances, such as work schedules or transportation, make a different group more workable for you and your family, please contact us at reopening@lscsd.org as soon as possible. Students who attend BOCES CTE classes, such as food service, welding, and carpentry, etc., will be in person at BOCES on Thursdays and Fridays and will be placed in the white groups for those days. So you'll attend the other days, half day in person at Lakeshore. We have arranged all classrooms to allow for social distancing of at least 6 feet while students are seated at their desks. A specially ordered Eagle face mask covering will be given to each student and staff member on the first day of instruction, along with a green lanyard to attach to the face coverings to prevent loss and to keep it from falling on the ground. So this is what they look like. You can write your name on the side, or if you really want to be fancy, you can write your name on the inside. There's also a neat little pouch inside of it where you can put in an added filter if you'd like to do that. While students are sitting at their seats social distanced, they will be, they will be allowed to take their mask down and maybe just put it right like this on their chin. If the teacher is walking around, or if their 6 foot of distancing cannot be maintained, they can simply just put it right back over their face while they're in class. Lunches will be consumed in the cafeteria. 3-sided polycarbonate shields will be used in the lunchrooms to allow students to eat while their face coverings are off. Lakeshore has purchased thermal scanners to take the temperatures of students and staff as they enter our buildings. So these are high-speed thermal scanners. Students will be able to walk through at a normal pace. We'll have somebody there at the door with the thermal scanner, making sure that kids are okay as they're coming in. So students should not have to be waiting outside in the cold or in the rain. They should just be able to walk in the building and be scanned that quickly. If a student has a temperature, we will bring them to the nurse's office where they can talk with the nurse and be screened by the nurse. We will also periodically take students and just calibrate the machine again, just to make sure that everything is okay and that we're not singling out any student because they might have a temperature. Daily screening of staff members will also occur on a daily basis electronically before they come to school. We have about an hour for a question and answer discussion. If there are still questions after our meeting today, which there probably will be, and that's okay, you can simply email your questions to the parentmeeting@lscsd.org email address. One of the things that I would like to share with you is this one document that's on the last page of our reopening plan that you can find on the website. Parents and guardians must make careful observations of their children for symptoms of COVID-19 each morning before sending children to school. Children or staff members who have symptoms of COVID-19 should not come to school. So this is a general checklist for you to be able to use before you send your child to school to make sure that they're okay. So what we did was we took all of the questions that we had up until the meeting this morning and put them in the different categories. As I read through the answers to the questions, they're going to be associated with the questions. At this point, I'm not going to read each question, but these are answers to the questions that came in earlier. And if we have any of our administrators can also chime in if there's something that they want to add. Letters to parents with classroom assignments and days of attendance are being emailed this week for elementary students. So you should be getting that soon. This is general information. School supplies are online and are being mailed. Please check with your building principal if you are unable to locate the supplies needed for school. Classrooms will be cleaned between each period. So our current models for students are hybrid, 2 days in school, 3 days remote. Full remote is a request by you to a building principal if you would like your child to be full remote. Full remote is not homeschooling. You are still considered a Lakeshore student. You do not have to fill out an individual homeschool instruction plan. You are still considered a Lakeshore student. Any changes should be done through the building principal. Monday is full remote for all kids. This will allow teachers to check in with kids on their learning activities. If cases arise in our region and we are asked to not have kids in the building, there will be virtual instruction for all students. There is a set schedule for each building that is in the plan on page 28. At this point, we are unable to offer 5 days a week and still adhere to our social distancing guidelines for wearing masks and social distancing. UPK will be in session. Contact the Hoyt building at 926-2270 if you need to register your child. There's a question about drinking fountains. Drinking fountains will be closed. We do have filling stations available in each of the buildings, so your child can fill up a water bottle if they have one. If the A through J or K through Z model does not work for you, please contact your building principal as soon as you can to see if we can accommodate you in another way. Orientation schedules are also posted on the website. So if you go to the website and you scroll down under announcements, there is the orientation schedule. Kindergarten students can bring their supplies with them during the orientation session. This is the homepage where all of our coronavirus information is listed right on the very first page of our website. After school and daycare. There is after school provided by the YMCA. You should contact them to see what they have available and what their rates are. Boys and Girls Club will be offering some after school care and possibly something on Mondays. So again, if you have any questions about those two programs, you can contact them directly. Bathrooms. Each building has different bathrooms depending on the age of the building. Some elementary schools have sinks in every room. Some buildings have touchless faucets. Students will be taught how to wash their hands with minimal touch points. Bathrooms will be cleaned throughout the day. Students will be able to dry their hands with paper towel. So some of you had asked about how often the bathrooms are going to be cleaned. Mr. Wilson?
So we're going to have our custodial staff passing through the building on a constant basis. We have a checklist going to be hanging on the door. Hopefully we can do it as much as once an hour to do a wipe down in each of the bathrooms, both boys and girls and adults also.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Cafeteria. We have a system in place so that students will not be waiting in lines that are not socially distanced. Children will be eating in the cafeteria for lunch. K through 8 will use clear cubicle style barriers while they're eating. The barriers are clear and will allow students to see each other and visit that way, but be safe. High school students will be social distanced. The barriers will be available for kids who want them. Breakfast will be grab and go. Students will eat in their rooms at the elementary level. Mondays are currently scheduled for lunch pickup for remote days. More information regarding this will be passed along on the website. As I mentioned, career and technology ed. Our students at the high school will all be in the white group and will attend BOCES on Thursday and Friday. And the other half of the day, they'll be in person at the high school. Classroom environment. Kids will be engaged in all classroom experiences. They will use their own materials and will stay social distance to the extent practicable. Kids will talk in class and participate in group activities. Group activities will look a little bit different with social distancing as they have in the past. Buildings will have PE and recess according to their building level protocols. If you are feeling uncomfortable in any way, please contact your building principal. Elementary students will leave their rooms for PE and for lunch. All content areas will be taught each day the students are in school. We will be sure to offer sessions for support when on remote instruction. That's going to be on Mondays mostly. There will be some time at the middle school for some remote help on Tuesdays through Thursdays. Classroom desks will be cleaned between periods at the secondary level and intermittently in the elementary. Class sizes. Lakeshore lost some funding at all of our levels this past budget year. All buildings will have half the kids, half the time. All classrooms are being set up with social distancing and will meet the expectations and protocols. Siblings and twins will be in the same classroom. So there was a question about this afterwards. So if you have twins in second grade, they will both be in the second grade class. If you have twins in second grade and another child in fifth grade, your fifth grader will be in the fifth grade class, not in the second grade class with the twins. So I just wanted to clarify that. Mr. Pecos, do you want to talk a little bit about budget?
So our budget that was approved by the voters is the total amount of money that we can spend. So we are watching the budget closely, watching how revenues come in. State aid revenues are still unknown at this time, but we'll be monitoring them closely. We're watching our spending on cleaning supplies and personal protective equipment, hitting Mr. Wilson's budget pretty hard, but we'll be billing for those items if we can on a FEMA claim. But again, our total budget, we're tied to that total dollar amount. So everything we have to operate the way we did before COVID, even though we have these increased expenditures. So we'll be watching and monitoring the budget throughout the year to make sure we stay within our guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Pecos. And because of that, we did have to adjust some classes at the elementary level. And we are going to do our best to make sure that all of those students are well cared for as we do during normal years. The topic of cleaning. Currently, we are using Oxivar. The chemicals are EPA approved and we do not wear hazmat suits to administer. It dries very quickly. There are MSDS sheets available. If you want one, please contact the building. And custodial hours are being shifted so that there is extra help during the day. There is a full staff each evening for enhanced cleaning after every school day. If a student or employee receives a positive test result for COVID, the building principal, facilities director, and director of health services will identify any spaces within the building that the individual had occupied subsequent to the last cleaning. These spaces, classrooms, bathrooms, offices, conference room, will be immediately closed and locked for a 24-hour period to reduce the amount of possible active virus that could be present on contact surfaces. After the 24-hour period has expired, the building's cleaning staff will deep clean and disinfect the room with EPA-approved water-based disinfectant. Students will have their own set of materials. Items will not be shared. Rooms will be cleaned each day with our enhanced protocols. Desk protocols will vary a bit by building depending on space. Rooms will be cleaned each day with our enhanced cleaning protocol. So some topics about COVID-19. What I want to be able to do after I read this is share a document from the Department of Health with you all. If your child has a fever, cough, shortness of breath, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle or body aches, according to the protocol of the Department of Health, they must have a healthcare provider note or a negative test for COVID-19 before returning. The Department of Health will guide us through all scenarios when a student or staff member tests positive for COVID. Contact tracers will contact the families and the school accordingly for all those who may have been involved. According to the DOH, if a child is symptomatic, they are asked to get a COVID-19 test or stay home for 10 days from the onset of symptoms. There should be a medical note from the doctor. It is important to keep in mind that we have continual contact with our school nurse. Your doctor will collaborate with you in the school if your child has seasonal allergies and it's an ongoing issue. More information will follow. So I'm going to share my screen here. This is a document that was shared with all school districts for the protocol for symptomatic or positive COVID-19 student or staff. This is also on our website. So if you take a look at the flow chart, that is what we will be doing. If a child does have a temperature and maybe it's not COVID, we will still have the nurse check them out and see if there are other symptoms. And they would probably more than likely just have to quarantine or stay home for a 24-hour period without any fever, without medication. If there are other issues, then the nurse will be contacting you so that you can also contact your doctor to see if there are other issues. So if you have a child who has a persistent issue with maybe ear infections and they might spike fevers from time to time, please be in contact with your school nurse so that we can arrange any kind of accommodations or anything that we might need to do for your particular situation. There are care rooms in each building while students wait for parent pickup. We must remember that COVID transmission occurs when there is not social distancing and no masks are being worn over a sustained amount of time, usually 10 to 15 minutes while talking. So we are being cautious and following all protocols. Symptomatic staff and students will report to the nurse and be isolated. They will be picked up and asked to see their doctor if necessary. They will return with a negative COVID test after 10 days or a note from the doctor. All symptoms must be treated as COVID as per the Department of Health. If symptoms persist that are allergies, again, you can call us and let us know, and we can work with you on that. There was a question about COVID cases in Eden. The case investigations are ongoing. At this time, the risk for community transmission from these cases is considered to be very low. It was all traced to a single person exposure. Schools do not and will not test for COVID-19. Our Department of Health coordinates testing locations. Those locations are also on the district website. Each staff member will get a daily temperature and will fill out a questionnaire. Parents will be required to complete a questionnaire periodically, and we'll be looking for an app that will help that process for our staff members. We'll be looking at doing that a little bit differently with parents, but as I showed earlier, those questions are things that you should be looking at and keeping track of if your child has any issues. Entering the building. There will be one single point of entry at all elementary schools, except with the exception of JTWA, who will have two. The district will monitor the body temperature of all staff and students entering the building. The district has ordered thermal scanners for each building. If there's a temperature of 100 degrees or higher, it's noted, and the employee or student will be scanned again and will have the temperature taken with a handheld device. If the temperature is verified, the student or staff member will go to the nurse's office for screening for other symptoms. Parents will be notified to come and pick up their child when the temperature is 100 or higher, or if symptoms are noted. Staff will complete a daily screening questionnaire electronically. We must remember that COVID occurs when there is not social distancing and no masks are sustained over a 10 to 15 minute time while talking. Parent drop-off and parent pickup times will be available this week. Protocols will be released so parents know where, when, and how to drop off their children. There was a question about grading. Grading this year will be actual grades. It will not be a pass-fail. There'll be more information about that as we proceed through the year. Masks. All children will be provided a mask to wear when they are unable to social distance. If you are sending a mask from home, you may use any mask that covers the nose and the mouth. We also have disposable masks on the bus in case the child doesn't have their mask when they're getting on the bus, and they can use that mask for the remainder of the day. We also have extra disposable masks in all of our buildings. Make sure that you wash the masks often, especially if you have one of these cloth masks. Masks are required to be worn when you're on the bus, in the hallways, and anytime you cannot social distance. This will be strictly enforced. Masks may not be required to be worn all day, depending upon where the child is in the room. In physical education and in band and in music, there is a 12 feet protocol that we follow for students in there that are taking those classes. So the phys ed teachers will make sure that they have their activities so that the students are always 12-foot spaced. And at the high school and middle school, they're looking at different configurations to be able to provide music. Mr. Rydell, you want to talk about music for elementary, and then we can have Mrs. Cook talk about high school.
Band and orchestra and chorus at the middle school, because we don't have the auditorium because it's under construction this year, we're going to have to try to cohort the children to their ensembles by team. Each of the lessons for orchestra and band, the instrumental teachers are going to try to coordinate it so that some of those lessons will be given during remote days so as not to disrupt or interrupt a student's classroom instruction with the limited time we have with the kids in the building. The music teachers are going to be coming in next week to hand schedule all of the kids into ensemble time, which may result in some students being seen for ensembles in group of about 8 or 9 people, given the room size. So it's going to be a big job, but we're going to try and make sure that they all get a chance to see their instrumental teacher so that they can continue to be engaged with the music program. And yeah,
Great.
it's going to be fun.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook?
At the high school, the music team has been working very diligently to see what they could do to be putting the kids together as much as possible. We do have access to the auditorium. So they've been in counting out spacing so that we could accommodate our larger groups. Smaller groups will be in the classrooms, socially distanced. So we think that we are going to be able to move forward and accommodate with the spacing and doing some of our larger group sizes.
Great.
Dr. Glozzo, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. As school schedules. As the school year progresses, we'll be better able to make decisions about Thanksgiving holidays and when your child will come to school if we're off on a Thursday or a Friday. We will follow SED guidelines at the time to determine when kids can come back to school every day and they do not have to wear masks and social distance. We will adjust to meet all of our guidelines. We are all hoping that this will not be for a full year, but understand that this is the best way to be part of the solution in beating the virus. We will follow guidance provided by the New York State Department of Education. High school schedules will be available after September 1st. All students will have their electives and specials. All buildings will run their rotation. Remote days are considered attendance days, and we are learning more on how that can be documented in terms of attendance. There's going to be more to come from the state. Kids in the elementary will eat breakfast in the classroom and lunch in the cafeteria. We can only offer hybrid model at this time in order to be compliant with regulations with social distancing. There was a question that came afterwards about how other districts are maybe have different configurations. Some districts have bigger buildings. They might have more staff members. So some not all districts are doing the exact same thing. If we could have more kids in the building at any one particular time, believe me, we would certainly do that. But right now, we are limited with the spacing that we have and the amount of staff that we have. Special education, other services, extra help. Classroom assignments are being mailed this week. All IEPs will be followed, and if you feel there is a question in service, please contact your child's teacher. Speech services will be either push in or pull out. If your child cannot tolerate a mask, we will collaborate with you for other preventative measures for your child. 504 plans will also be followed. AIS is provided for students who qualify. Therapies will be provided in school, and some teletherapy will be provided as well. Your specific schedule will be determined as the school year gets closer. So on Mondays, some of our therapists will be scheduling remote therapy for some of your students so that they can maintain that contact. So Mondays will also be used to offer help sessions for kids who need assistance on their independent work. There will also be some opportunities throughout the week, including Tuesdays through Thursdays in certain levels. Schedules are being determined to have this mapped out this week. Self-contained classrooms, students in certain classrooms will be in school Tuesday through Thursday. This schedule will also be mailed out this week with remote learning on Mondays for those students. Sports. Sports tentatively start September 21st. We are waiting for final word from the state in terms of whether or not sports will run. Our sports programs will, of course, follow any protocols that we need to follow in order to keep students safe. Technology, access, and remote days. As the school year begins, there will be a process for sign out of technology. We will begin the year with paper-based work due to a high request from families for paper, and this allows time for students in school to learn the technology in the classroom before being asked to do any independent work using technology. This is also an equity issue as some families do not have internet access or access to Chromebooks. A survey will be sent out to the families gathering technology access information. Packet distribution will be conveyed later through August in terms of when to pick it up and how to return it. Students will not be attending a regular schedule for remote days. They will have information on check-in times in case they are stuck on their independent work, which may include afternoons for Tuesday through Thursdays and a time on Monday as well. We are starting the year with paper-based work and we'll be developing a system so that all students will know how to access their work and when to use it. Our K-12 model will be Google Classroom. Students will learn to use Google Classroom in school before assigning it for independent work. Some classes may be mainstreamed, most will not at this time. We will have video support for some kids to be used if they have access at home. The same expectations will be there on Mondays as with the other 2 days the students are in remote learning. Because your families will have the work in advance, you can adjust your schedules accordingly. And on Mondays, teachers will be reaching out to your families to see how else we can better support your child. We will do our very best to accommodate all families. Our touch points will be on Monday, so we will call families to see how things are going and how we can accommodate you in different ways. We thank you for your patience as we work through these protocols. The computer protocol expects that students will wash their hands before and after use. The computers cannot be cleaned with the cleaning materials we use because it can damage the screens. MiFi or Wi-Fi will be available as the school year begins, along with locations for students to be able to access Wi-Fi. If a student is remote 5 days a week, they are still considered Lakeshore students and not a student who was homeschooled. Transportation. You will know when you can drop off and pick up your child if they are not taking the bus. Details will be mailed out this week. You can also contact the building. If you have to change your plans, you will contact the transportation department and the building. Consistency will be the key here for all of us. Daily bus passes are not going to be provided. Alcohol-based cleaners and sanitizers are not allowed on the bus due to DOT regulations. So those were the answers to the questions that we had earlier today. And I have a list of other questions that were emailed to us after we were done with the session this morning. So I'm going to read those questions and answer them. And if any of our building administrators want to add to my answer, you can certainly do so. Question: Since there are thermometers in Highland, will parents be able to walk their child into the school buildings if they have a mask on and then leave when the child is in safely? As you can imagine, we're trying to limit the number of people that come into the buildings. Being a former elementary principal, I understand how important this first or second day is of school, especially for our little kindergarten students. It is a huge day. So we are asking that you do not walk into the building, with your child, because we're trying to limit that. Any of the elementary principals do you have anything to add about what, for kindergarten?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's Paula Eastman. I'm the principal of the J.T. Waugh School. I wanted to share with you that we will be accepting kids at the door. We have adults there to greet them. So give them a hug and kiss outside, and we'll make that smooth transition in. We know it's often harder for you, the parent, to let go of the child than it is for the child to release from you. So we'll be there to support both of you. But again, as Dr. Galluzzo kept mentioning, if you have questions, please ask. And we also, those orientations, will be showing you those areas. So then you'll have that visual of where we'll be receiving kids and where you'll be picking them up. And we hope that eliminates some of your concerns. And I know that both my AJ Schmidt principal, Jill Clark, and Colleen Politowski at Highland will be doing the same.
Right. Mrs. Starks? You're muted. There you go.
Yep. Can I share a bit about what we'll be doing for pre-K?
Sure.
Pre-K will have an orientation as well. We're going to keep the groups very small, and you'll have an appointment set up for you on orientation day so that you will have your own very small, almost private tour of the classroom and where the place is where the staff will meet you at the bus circle. So it's almost like curbside drop off and pick up, like takeout, but with your kids at school, and we'll be there for them with a smile and a lot of love. Lots of room in pre-K still. So if you have a 4-year-old, we want them.
Thank you, Mrs. Starks. Next question. How will remote students be participating in physical education? Actually, there's 4 questions by one person. How will remote students meet seat time for labs and science? Are AP and elective courses available to remote students? How are remote students picking up and dropping off paperwork safely? So I know that Mrs. Bergler has a very good friend who's a physical education teacher in another district. But students will be provided with activities to do for physical education if they are remote. So they'll be getting a packet. So if your child is remote, they're still going to be assigned to a teacher, and they'll still be assigned to the classes that they would be taking if they were in person. So there should be work coming home that they're able to do and expected to do while they're home. In terms of seat time for labs and science, Mrs. Bergler?
Mrs. Cook, you'll want to make sure I have this correct, but I believe that
Right.
they're accommodating us with what we need to do at the state ed level. They did the same for us in the spring. We continue to receive notifications of different requirements across all content areas. And right now, the high school social studies teachers eligible of what will happen and provide all of the resources and things that our kids need in order to take the Regents in June if it will still be required.
That's correct. And I think you meant science, Mrs. Bergler?
Yeah, science, right.
Sorry, I don't even know what I said, sorry.
No, you are correct. And we will definitely be working with our kids both on the remote level, because there are also labs that can be done online.
And it's a similar question for AP and elective classes for remote students. Mrs. Cook?
So our AP program teachers will have in-person time 2 days a week. If you are the hybrid, the remote students will receive the material and will be able to check in with the teachers either at the end of the day or maybe a predetermined time throughout the day, Tuesday through Friday, but also on Mondays. Mondays will be a big remote touch time for us.
Thank you. And how are remote students picking up and dropping off paperwork? So the process for that is going to be coming out within the next week or so. in terms of when to pick up work and how to drop it off. So when your children are doing the work at home, they will be graded on that work to the best of their ability. And then if we're seeing issues, we'll make sure that there is somebody that's going to reach out and contact you. When will we receive dates of school starting, and what about the BOCES programs? So we are starting school on September 8th. Our Board of Education just approved the change in our calendar so that we're going to be starting on the 8th instead of the 2nd. So we are going to have staff development days on the 31st, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. For all of our teachers will be in the district, working on all the different things that we need to work on to get started. Again, the schedules, I'll have our principals say what their schedules are for each of their levels. Mrs. Cook, and then we'll go middle school and then elementary.
So I was going to speak to the CTE component. So our students who are in the CTE curriculum, like Lakeshore, they are also doing a hybrid model. So they are taking all of the Lakeshore students on Thursdays and Fridays. So our students who are participating in CTE will still have access to that program. It will just be on Thursdays and Fridays. As far as schedule goes, we have made a shift to our curriculum so that we are accommodating our students during this unusual circumstance with COVID. So our school day now will start at 7:40. Students will be able to come into the building at 7:20. Our end of the day will be 2:35.
Right. Thank you. And there will still obviously be transportation for students that need transportation. Middle school, Mr. Riddell?
Just like the high school, we've had to adjust our morning routine. Teachers will be coming in at 7:25. The teacher day will end at 3:05. The pledge will be at 7:37, and the student day will end at 7:37. We asked the parents not drop students off at the building before 7:25 because that's when the thermal scanners will be online. We will have a new parent drop-off loop coming in from Route 5, which will keep you separate from all sorts of other traffic, so it should go smoothly. But again, we cannot accept children into the building at 7 o'clock or 6:50 like we used to. We're going to have to hold everybody until about 7:20, 7:25. The middle school day is going to look very similar, except there'll be half the kids in the building. Kids will travel in cohorts from class to class on team, and they'll go to their exploratories with their team students, with other team students. And then in the cafeteria, we'll have one team on one side towards the gym, another team on the other side towards the stairwell with the polycarbonate barriers, study carrels for each child in the cafeteria. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Thank you. Mrs. Eastman, did you want to add anything for elementary?
Sure. I'm also speaking for Mrs. Clark. She doesn't have audio this evening, so I'm assisting. So I get to say whatever I want for AJ Schmidt. No, okay. So our school day will be 8:35 to 3:35 for teachers. Students will not be able to report into the building, entering the building until 8:35. At that time, we'll be receiving students from the buses as well as parent drop-off. Our day is really going to look quite the same in the manner of kindergarten to second grade and third grade for Mrs. Clark. Our kids are going to stay in their cohort group. They'll be receiving their content areas and specials except for phys ed in the classroom. We will be able to take them outside and take advantage of that great fall weather that we have. So we want to make sure that we get out for the fresh air. For us at JT Waugh, we will not be changing classes in third grade, fourth grade, or fifth grade. We will be staying in our single cohort group. So that's going to be different. We're not departmentalizing, but that will also make it easier for our parents when working with those kids at home for those days that we are remote. So we're very excited. Please watch for more information regarding our the pickup portion, because we're going to try to make that as simple as possible and not have as many people come into the building, because we know we have a large group. I know there was a question regarding breakfast. We are doing the grab and go. And I did see a question that came in, are other children able to bring in a breakfast? Please note that we're having very simple breakfast for kids to make sure that we don't have a lot of food in the classroom. We want to make sure that we keep things sanitary that way. In addition, if your child is a remote learner and those packets coming home, please remember not to exceed the help that they need. We don't want to know what you know. We want to know what your kids know and if they have any trouble. So we want to make sure that they're accurate. But again, any other questions that come up, please reach out to us individually. We'll be happy to help you and share more specific for our buildings.
Mrs. Politowski?
Our schedule is the same as JTWA and AJ Schmidt by about 5, with the exception of 5 minutes. We'll start at 8:30 and our teachers will stay until 3:30. We'll have the same drop off again, just like at AJ Schmidt and JTWA. It'll be about around the same time as buses. So we'll have to just make sure that we're careful that we're not going where the buses are and that we're driving slowly, because we don't want to hit any of our kiddos, and we want to be careful of all of that. Usually we were allowing kids in at 8:20 for breakfast, but just like the other schools, we're also going to be doing 8:30 for breakfast grab and go down to their classrooms. Same schedule during the day. The kids will be cohorting. We will not be departmentalizing at 4th and 5th grade. So the kids will stay within their group. And then at the end of the day, it'll be the same pickup procedures, but make sure that you're just giving me a call if you have any questions, and watching our webpage and our Facebook page for any more details.
Great. Thank you so much.
May I share the pre-K?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mrs. Starks. Yep.
Pre-K will also be working hybrid with half the children, half the time. And the parent drop off is 8:45 for the morning session and pickup at 11:15. And for the afternoon session, 12:15 and 2:45. Again, staff will meet you in the bus circle to welcome you and receive your child with lots of happy greetings, and we'll get everyone transitioned into the building. And we're also looking at, rather than Monday being a remote day, the children attending every other Monday, so that the youngest of our children are in school without the remote piece as much as possible.
Thank you. Next question. When it's colder out and some children may have runny noses, watery eyes, or similar common cold/allergy symptoms, are they sent home immediately, required to have a doctor's note, and/or quarantine if they do not have a fever over 100? How are students screened for potential symptoms by the school nurse? What are the thresholds set before they are deemed to be sent home? So again, the initial screening is going to be the temperature check as the students walk in. If their temperature is not over 100, they could still be kind of sniffly. I would make sure that they have some tissues in their backpack, because we know that that is going to happen. People will sneeze once in a while. It doesn't mean that they have COVID. So of course, we're going to make sure that if a child does have that temperature, they'll go to the nurse. She'll go through the screening with the parent over the phone. So for at least that day, we'd want them to be home for the, a regular 24-hour period, the way we normally would if a child, had a fever when they came into school. And then we would check closely with the family to make sure that there hasn't been any other issues. So that's basically the way that goes. So, and again, if it has to go further down the line in terms of needing a test or needing to talk to the doctor, we will work with the families and the Department of Health to see what the next steps would be. So every case is different, and that's the process that we're going to be following.
Could I just add one thing?
Of course, yeah.
parents, communication is huge. If you can just stay in contact with us, that would be great. And if we can avoid the Tylenol dosing so that a temperature would drop and then send to school, because you know what happens as soon as that Tylenol would wear off, the temperature comes back and then we're calling you. So if you can keep in contact with us about those, when it comes to runny noses, we know, especially with little kids, we would have empty buildings if we were sending everybody home with a runny nose. I don't know if you're like me, but as soon as I put my mask on, I tend to sneeze or I tend to cough just because of those little allergens that might be in the fabric as well. So we're in tune, but the biggest thing we can ask is that communication if you know something's up with your child. And our nurses are available so much, you reach out, so please continue to do so.
Thank you so much. Next question. How will band instruments be handled for children who are sharing a large instrument at school? Normally they switch out mouthpieces, but this may not be enough in these times. So I know that the music department we have a meeting with them tomorrow, and this will be one of the topics in terms of how we clean those instruments that are shared. So there'll be more information from that for you guys that we'll be sending out to answer this question a little bit more fully. But I don't see students sharing mouthpieces for sure. But we'll definitely take a look at what we might have to do to clean those instruments in the school if they're sharing those. Let's see. I'm reading this one here. This question is a little late with my other question, but last night I forgot one major thing, which is when will parents be notified that someone is homesick with COVID, so we can come get our kids out of the school before exposed to COVID? Would this happen immediately? So again, so this question is, how will parents be notified? So again, we will do our screening, contact the Department of Health. They will go through their contact tracers with us to see how they want to go through that. And then they will notify us as to whether or not we need to proceed further. So it's really a case-by-case basis. So the DOH will be the one in charge of contacting people that might have been affected and contacting the school to let us know what we need to do internally. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that? Okay. If a student has a fever, are they required to be tested to return to school? Okay, the answer to that question is not necessarily. Again, it depends upon if there are other symptoms and after screening with the nurse, what the procedure would be. It could just be where a student has an ear infection and they have a fever. Each case is going to be handled in a case-by-case basis. Will students with an IEP attend all 4 days of classroom instruction? So again, I answered that question a little bit earlier. It depends upon the type of special education services a child is being provided and what type of class that they're in. So some of our special ed students will be in school 4 days a week. If you are one of those students, you will be contacted for your schedule within the next week. At what time will the district reevaluate the hybrid program to resume full in-school instruction, especially for lower grades? We're going to be reevaluating that constantly in conjunction with the Department of Health and the Erie County executive in terms of what's going on in terms of infection rates. So believe me, as soon as we're able to open with more students in the building, we are certainly going to do that. We are ready to go to full in-person tomorrow if we were able to do that, but unfortunately we're not. Is it correct on remote days, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday, there will be no contact time from a teacher? So again, depending upon the schedules and the level, there could be some contact time on Tuesdays through Thursdays at some point for the students that are remote. But generally that main contact time will be on Mondays. And of course, the students that are in school for the 2 days will have contact with those teachers, knowing what they need to do when they go home and what they need to bring back. Will the teachers have scheduled one-to-one video time with students on Monday, or will we contact them via email? Mrs. Burglar?
The way our schedule is designed, K-12, Mondays will be set up so that there will be sessions for your child to attend, K-12. The teachers will work on that and get a schedule submitted and sent to you as soon as we can. And then at the beginning, probably some check-ins. It'll evolve into direct instruction, and we'll move forward with that, depending on the needs of our community and our families. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays in the afternoon, middle school and high school teachers will have time set up during their traditional after-school help, and that will be for an opportunity for remote kids to get on and check in if they're having struggles with work and so forth. We're also intending to put video support up with links that would support the classroom instruction. A few of our classes will be live streamed, and those teachers will notify kids directly on how to do that. And then we're also going to try to set up for elementary some touch points during the week, and we're working on the design of that right now. And we will be able to give you more information as that evolves.
Great, thank you. Will middle and high school students be using lockers? Yes, they will be using lockers. And the cleaning staff is going, as Mr. Wilson said earlier, as they're making their rounds, they're not going to be walking around the building without some type of a cleaning product in their hand. And they will be wiping down surfaces as they're walking through the buildings, keeping things wiped down as much as possible.
Wall will also be using the lockers on the second floor.
Thank you.
Could I add for the high school too? High school is going to be using a system of every other. So the green team will have one section, say the odd section, the white team will have the even section, so that they'll be naturally spaced.
Great.
That's also true at the middle school. We're gonna do distance with the lockers so that the students are able to use the lockers.
Great. I was wondering if Chromebooks would be provided to every student for remote learning. I'm also wondering how many students will be in classroom during school and school days. So as I said earlier, we're going to be using the first few weeks to be able to get a handle on what students need in terms of technology at home. We're going to be looking at that to see exactly how many Chromebooks and other technology devices we might have to be able to lend out. In terms of the number of students in a classroom, basically it's half the kids, half the time. So if you have 22 kids in your class, generally you'll have 11 kids in person those 2 days. If you have 24 students in your class, then you'd have 12 in that type of situation. So basically half the kids, half the time. I talked about, this one's about chorus and band, and we talked about that. How long will virtual day be for students? So in terms of how long the virtual day will be, as I said, students will be getting information that they can work on when they're remote. So depending upon what your schedule, if your child is in a childcare setting, all the child care programs that I know always have some time set aside for students to be able to work on schoolwork. So having that paper base and having those activities really does give parents some flexibility at home in terms of what the day looks like during those times. If you're talking about if we all have to go to virtual, the schedules for that is in the reopening plan for you to take a look at. What happens if your high school student doesn't have a lunch? Are they going to be allowed to eat during class? Yes, they will. Will extra help be available for students after school when there is a hybrid? At this time, there will be no after school activities, but again, there will be some time set aside Tuesdays through Thursdays at certain levels and on Mondays for extra help. Can we keep our child out of phys ed class? Again, half of our students, half the time, activities will be created so that the kids are going to be social distanced for at least 12 feet. Excuse me. And when it's nice outside, we also plan on using outside spaces as much as possible. So it should be pretty safe for your child to participate in phys ed class. If there's a different type of issue, medical, or a different reason, please let us know and the building principal can work with you on that. So this question is about what happens if a teacher or a student tests positive. And again, I shared that protocol with you earlier in terms of what our process is. This is a question about the twins, and I answered that one. There is also a question about, can my child bring in Norwex cloth to clean off their own desk to class each day? They could bring that in, but it is my understanding that it doesn't kill the virus as effectively. The desks are going to be cleaned, so I would say that if they want to, they could, but we're still going to make sure that the desks are clean. John or anybody want to add to that?
You're correct. The rooms will be cleaned as they always are. They in a normal evening, each one of the surfaces gets with a disinfectant, and then in the enhanced cleaning protocol, Oxavar is sprayed on and used on a terry towel or a lint-free towel. I don't see where there would be a need for that to happen.
Thank you. Could we, one of the questions is asking about what a typical day looks like for students when they're in person. So why don't we start with Mrs. Cook?
So in the high school, students will enter into the building. They'll walk through the scanner. As they pass through, they will walk into the hallway. They can stop and get a breakfast if they desire. Otherwise, they're going to their lockers and moving to their first period class. They will move through the periods of the day just like they always do. They'll have lunch. At the end of the day, the bell will ring. Kids will be dismissed. They'll either go to the front for transportation or they'll go to the west side with where they are able to go to the parking lot if they drove or have a parent pick up. Kids will be half as many in the classroom. So you'll see on average, probably 12 to 15, 16 kids in each class. They'll be with the same group. So the Tuesday, Wednesday group will be together. The Thursday, Friday group will be together. They'll see all of their teachers. When they're walking in the hallway, they'll walk kind of like the street. So on the right, you're going one way. On the left, you're going the other way. PE, as Dr. Galuzzo already talked about, is going to be outside wherever possible. And when it's inside, socially distanced. So I think you're not going to see much change other than you're going to see half as many kids in the building and we're going to be wearing masks.
Thank you. Either Mr. Rydell or Mrs. BW, your mic was kind of going in and out, Mr. Rydell, before when you were talking.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with my internet connection. So the middle school day is going to look just like any other middle school day, except there'll be fewer kids. We'll start the day right in time.
You're breaking up, Eric. You're breaking up. Katie, you want to take over?
Sure. So it's going to look just like usually does, except as Eric said, there will be fewer kids. Students will start the day at normal time. They can go through the breakfast line if they desire, grab and go their breakfast, eat their breakfast, head upstairs or downstairs to where they need to be, get their stuff out in their lockers, out of their lockers, and head to class. Students will be cohorted with their team so that they will only interact with those small groups of students. And if they have a foreign language, they're still taking their foreign language. And if they have, let's see, art on one day and it's an every other day class, they'll have art one day and then they'll have whatever they have the opposite day. So it'll really run just like normal, except they only go 2 days a week instead of 5. So pretty much the same.
Great. Elementary?
Yep, our elementary day will look quite similar. except with the students will be called in off the buses at 8:35. We will not be having the mass exodus that we normally have when the bell rings. We're going to be letting kids in bus by bus, just because with teaching them, they don't understand the developmentally the part of social distancing as well. We want to make sure that they get to where they need to be and allow some space in between. If kids need to get breakfast, they'll follow the protocol we have designed for that. Instruction will take place inside the classroom with special areas meeting that cohort group in the room. Kids will have lunch. We have the barriers that'll be set up. Phys ed will be outside. We are continuing our A to E schedule rotation. So we'll just, whatever classes fall on that A through E, we'll keep that rolling. So our kids are basically going to have the same, it's not going to be that different for them, just similar to what my colleagues had said, half the number of kids in the building.
Great. Another question about what Monday remote is. And again, that's the time where teachers are going to be able to touch base and provide assistance for students. Will kindergarten orientation be in person or virtual? That schedule's on the website, and it will be in person. And a schedule will be sent out to let parents know what their time is scheduled to be able to come in.
Please note that at the 9 o'clock time is for the green group and the 10 o'clock time is for the white group.
And you'll also be able to bring in your supplies that day as well.
So next question is about a student who has some health concerns. If her health is negatively impacted, can I change her status to work remotely from home for 5 days a week? Can I change her status? Yes, you can. You can certainly do that. So this one question talks about what it looks like in terms of the schedule. So we just talked about that, what it looks like in the hallway, what it looks like in the cafeteria. They asked if we can post pictures, and we currently do have some videos on the website, and we will be posting pictures of what the different rooms look like so that you can get a feeling for that. If you would like to come in and check out the school, you're going to need to contact the building principal, because we're still cleaning the rooms, and some floors are being waxed and things. So we might be looking at that maybe that last week in August at some point, before the teachers come in. So there'll be more about that coming out. Do we need to get a COVID-19 test before coming to school? No, you do not. Again, we'll follow that COVID protocol that I talked about earlier. This is a question about another district, how their hybrid situation is different than ours. And again, I talked about that earlier, where some districts have the space capacity and other staffing capacities to do things a little bit differently. So you'll find different configurations in all different districts, but for Lakeshore, having the hybrid model, half the students, half the time, is what we're able to do. Will students ever be asked or assigned to sanitize the desk or high contact areas within the classroom? Will only staff be disinfecting areas throughout the day to have accountability for the quality of disinfecting process? Students will not be assigned to clean desks in any way, shape, or form. We do have extra cleaners during the day, and we have a solid crew at night to be able to make sure that all of our rooms are cleaned and disinfected every night before the next start of the school day. They ask if we hired more healthcare professionals. We have not hired more healthcare professionals. We believe we'll be able to get the job done with the people that we have here. Each building will have an isolation room, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. Do you anticipate the driveways to be fully opened for parent drop-off pickup? Go ahead, Katie.
The front of the middle school looks like they're almost ready. I know John Wilson can nod and agree with that, hopefully, but it looks absolutely gorgeous out there with the new paving and the new bus loop, which will separate the buses from the cars. So it sounds like we're going to be ready to go.
Great. High school?
Yeah, we're going to be having the buses drop off in the front main entrance, and parent drop off pickup will be on the west side, which is the side closest to Beach Road next to Tim Hortons. That's also where the parking lot will be for students who are driving. We are this year doing something a little bit different because of the situation that we're in. We have changed up our early departure, late arrival system. So students that are in the zone of being qualifying for late arrival, early dismissal can have one of three choices, assuming that their schedule works, which is 2 periods in the morning, 2 periods at the end of the day, or 1 at each end. So 1 in the morning, 1 at the end of the day.
Great. And elementary schools? I would, same.
Yep, so we'll have the buses going into the bus loop at Highland. I'm sure it's the same at AJ. And then I know Mrs. Eastman also has her buses coming in at a certain place, and then parent drop off. Once the buses are gone, our parents are allowed to pull into the Highland loop, but there's also the side drop entrance where parents can drop and go on the side of the building.
Yep, for JT Wall, we'll be having parent drop off on High Street. I would like to tell you what direction it is that our buses are on, but I have no idea if that's north, south, east, or west, but where our buses used to pull in is the same spot they're going to be coming in now.
Thank you. We're almost done. Will kids get lockers? We talked about that earlier and how that's going to be done, every other locker. Are the full list of school supplies needed? I would imagine that you would still need your school supplies when you're in school. If you want to have your child put their markers and those kinds of things in a plastic baggie, they could certainly carry those back and forth in their backpacks back and forth to school. I know that there'll be bins, especially at the elementary level, for students to have different kinds of supplies so that they're not sharing. So we will not be sharing supplies with kids. Will they be changing classrooms in the middle and high school? Yes. As we said earlier, in the elementary, no, other than when they go to phys ed and to lunch, and the teachers will be walking them back and forth to their classes. If they will be fully on and with paper in September, how will their attendance be entered? So again, when we collect that work, we will look at the work, and we're getting guidance from the state in terms of how we need to mark that in terms of attendance in Power School and how we keep attendance. Okay, let's see. And the very last one is, again, is there any mask requirements? And I talked about that earlier. So anytime a child cannot be socially distanced of at least 6 feet, they have to have their masks on. That means in the hallway, on the bus. If they are in the classroom and they are 6 foot distance is not being maintained because maybe the teacher has a small group of students, or the teacher is walking through the room working with students, he or she will just simply ask the students to put their mask up like this while they're working. When they return back, they could give themselves a mask break by doing that. So I would like to thank all of our administrators for being with me tonight. And I want to thank all of you for being here on this Zoom meeting with us. Again, if you have more questions, please send them to parent meeting, not reopening, parent meeting, lscsd.org. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Wednesday at 10 a.m.